This week on the show is Poshmark ending Delist and Relist as a reselling tool. We've also got updates from eBay and Etsy. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 294 of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and I'm going to be your host as we have got a massive amount of reselling news this week, a couple of updates from Poshmark, several announcements from eBay, and a couple over at Etsy. In fact, there is so much news this week that there's not going to be a What Sold recap. In this episode, I will hold that for this coming Wednesday's live. So if that is your jam, be sure to catch our show on Wednesday. But we've just got a ton of reselling news. There will be links and timestamps in the show notes and the video description below. But let's get in to this reselling news.
News updates.
So Poshmark made a huge announcement this week, and as you would expect, it has met with a ton of reseller discussion in the various forums and over on Reddit. This article is a summary of it, which appeared over on Value Added Resource. Links again in the show notes and the video description below. Poshmark cracks down on listing removals, raising alarm for sellers who cross-post on other marketplaces. This is potentially a really huge issue for sellers. We'll have to wait and see. There's so much gray area and so much unknown here, which we're going to get into. But this has really sparked a lot of discussion online, people waiting for more information and so on. But this is definitely the news of the week. Poshmark cracking down on sellers who remove listings and or relist items with a new policy the company says is aimed at improving discoverability and attracting repeat buyers. So interestingly, there are two pieces to that. Removing listings, which is the big one for those of us who cross list, and or relisting those items, which the delist, relist, or end sell similar are obviously big tools in resellers' arsenals to try to keep their listings fresh. We're gonna get into that a little bit more as we get into this article. Sellers were just given a few days notice as the new what is called excessive listing removal policy is set to take effect on May 1st of this year. And despite the positive spin, sellers who cross-post the same item on multiple platforms fear they could soon be punished for the practice. Poshmark's memo, effective date May 1st, 2025, reads, at Poshmark, shoppers love discovering fresh inventory, not seeing the same items over and over. Keeping your closet active and evolving helps attract repeat customers and leads to more sales than repeatedly recycling old listings. Occasionally refreshing a listing can help boost its visibility, but excessive listing removal and relisting is not allowed. I was not aware that prior to this that was an issue. Most of these sites seem to kind of encourage it, but nonetheless, they're not going to allow it, at least going forward. This behavior disrupts, they say, discoverability, derails prospective sales, and frustrates other poshers. My biggest takeaway on the delist and relist is that if it's happening but there are no edits to that listing, you haven't made any efforts to update it, you haven't changed the pictures, you haven't changed the description, you haven't changed the title, you're just simply relisting the exact same listing in the exact same format. I can see why they would have a problem with that. But if you go in and legitimately take a listing down, update it, refresh it to try to make it a more attractive listing, and then put it back up, I'm not sure why that would be a problem. I don't know that they can differentiate that. I don't know that they're even going to attempt to differentiate that, but that would be my take on it. I personally don't have any problem with that sort of behavior, but the like bulk delisting and relisting, if you're a longtime listener, you know that is not something that I do. To be fair, I don't sell on Poshmark, but we'll get into how this could have downstream effects here in a little bit as well. What counts as excessive listing removal and relisting? The following actions, Poshmark said, are considered abusive and are not allowed. Repeatedly removing and or relisting the same or similar items, mass listing removals, whether manually or through automation, and any action that circumvents marketplace listing policies in order to gain unfair search or marketing advantages. Again, I don't sell on Poshmark, but I know, for instance, that on eBay, if you do a end sell similar, that new listing is treated as an actual new listing and gets all the benefits that accrue to those new listings, which in theory gives you a marketing advantage. Whether you would say that is unfair or not, I don't know. But that clearly appears to be Poshmark's take, is that this type of behavior, whether it's manual or automated, kind of violates the fairness principle, at least from the marketing. Note, importantly, it is for repeatedly removing and relisting the same or similar items. So I don't know exactly what they're driving at there. If you're doing it once a week, once a month, what is repeatedly? We'll get into the kind of the definition and lack of detail on this also here in a moment. A listing removal includes deleting a listing, marking it as not for sale, or making changes like significantly altering the price, title, or description to discourage purchases, thereby effectively making it not available. So here they're also pointing out that making just edits to a listing so that no one would ever buy it. So you've got a shirt, for instance, that's a $10 shirt, and you decide you don't want to sell it, but you don't want to run the risk of falling afoul of this new policy. So you market $10,000. According to this phrasing, Poshmark would consider that effectively a listing removal because you've effectively made it not available by altering the price in such a way as to discourage the purchase. So that is a really interesting. They are covering a lot of bases with the way this policy is worded. Acceptable listing removals. We understand that there are legitimate reasons for occasionally removing listings and managing inventory freshness, such as items become damaged or are out of stock, items that are seasonal and only sold during specific times of the year, or the closet is set on a vacation hold. Interestingly, they do not, in that, include the item having been sold elsewhere, which is where sellers who cross list really got their hackles up. Because if I have my listings on Poshmark and Mercari and eBay and Depop and it sells on one of those other sites, of course, I'm going to go in and remove it from Poshmark because that item is legitimately no longer available. So, how they're going to account for that, especially for bigger sellers. If you're a one or two a week kind of thing, I don't think this is probably going to affect you. But if you're selling dozens or hundreds of items a week across multiple platforms, this could really become a problem for you, particularly because they're really unclear about where the thresholds are, which again, we'll get into here in a minute. Poshmark goes on to say that sellers suspected of engaging in excessive listing removals may receive automated warnings. So this is going to be policed by bots or an algorithm, not by actual humans, and it's going to be fully automated. If the behavior continues after a warning, temporary restrictions on creating new listings may apply, and in severe cases, accounts may be permanently disabled. So they're not messing about with this. They're very serious. Sellers shared their thoughts on the new policy, of course, over on Reddit, with some speculating that Poshmark may be trying to cut down on shady practices like ending and relisting an item if it doesn't sell for as much as the seller had hoped in a live show. From what I've heard, one said part of this is about those people who sell something for way less than they would like a share show or a low start, then cancel the sale, then relist. And I can absolutely see where that would be a problem, but I would think that would be able to be accounted for by excessive canceling of sales rather than ending a listing and relisting it for another reason. So that may be the case, but that one seems to be, for me, more of a stretch. Others believe the motive could be more nefarious and attempt to dissuade sellers from cross listing items to other platforms like eBay, Depop, or Mercari. As I just said, I don't think they care about bots and automation or even the good old list sales, relist sales trick. This is about controlling sellers and instilling fear in those of us who sell across multiple platforms. My guess, the writer continued, is they've noticed an uptick in cross posting, something many of us have to do now because of sales plummeting on the Poshmark platform. Sellers have been using the relist after 60 days trick on Poshmark for years now, so it can't be that. I'm not sure I agree with that, but we'll continue. This is the company that gave us the copy listing reposh feature and stands to gain more revenue from the 60-day-old relist. But I'm sure what they're seeing more and more of is what I have to do more and more of now: remove listings or mark items not for sale because they have sold elsewhere. Another said, Posh does not procure, list, store, maintain, or fulfill the products sold on its site. We do all of that. The items are our property while in our possession, and the drafts are our labor. Who are they to think they have any right or claim over our items before they have sold? Posh doesn't pay us a guaranteed minimum monthly fee to maintain our closets. Sellers front load all costs and expenses. If I choose to pull 100 to 200 items that haven't been moving online for an in person market where they might do better without the burden of shipping fees, I should be able to do so. They said, if I want to pull 50 sale items and take them to a BST, I should be able to do so. So, and I absolutely, completely agree with that. It is our inventory. We should be able to manage it as we see fit. We should be able to cross list it. We should be able to put it up, take it down, move it to another site, take it off site altogether. It's our stuff. We should be able to do with it what we want. Abusing the and my gut instinct is that this is more aimed at the end list relist folks than it is on just straight up ending listings, unless you're ending like huge numbers of listings. I feel like this is more aimed at that piece of it. You can let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, but it feels like that's really what they're going for. Another interesting point I came across is that relisting gives you free exposure and they'd prefer you to pay for closet promotion instead. Personally, I've never had a good experience with it, and it's just another expense. Reselling is becoming exhausting. It feels like it's constantly something, and once you get a little bit ahead, they pull the rug from under you. This is an interesting one too, and it relates to the idea of what the downstream effects of this might be on other platforms. I'm thinking particularly of eBay in this case, because as any YouTube guru would have you believe, and many of them do, delisting and sell similar on eBay is a great way to game the system, to hack the algorithm and get your listing moved to the front of the queue. You get all, again, you get all the benefits of it being a legitimate new listing, when in fact it may be that same stale listing that you've had for however frequently you do it, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, once a year, whatever the case may be. You jump the queue of all of those other ones. And the notion that everyone is now doing this, or not everyone, because I, for one, do not. But it ends up junking up the system with a bunch of effectively stale listings. And again, I'm speaking as though I'm eBay or Poshmark now, not as a seller. It gums up their system with listings that are in fact not fresh, that are being pushed as though they're fresh. In the case of eBay in particular, they provide tools to us as sellers, particularly ones that they want you to pay for, promoted listings, in order to help keep your listings moving. And using the end sell similar is kind of an end around of having to use a thing that eBay would view as an income generating opportunity for them. They would tell you, as Poshmark I'm sure does, that it's a tool for you to help promote your items, but it is obviously it's an additional cost to you. And this loophole of end sell similar, delist, relist ends up being a workaround that sellers have determined in order to get around the system and not have to take advantage, or not have to be taken advantage of, as the case may be, those different tools. So this is a really interesting phenomenon. It's going to be really fascinating to see what other platforms, not just eBay, but Mercari and Depop and all the others, where this practice of ending a listing and then starting a new one has shown to be very beneficial. It's also interesting to note that there are no, I've seen a lot of sellers talking about there are no specifics on this. There's no, if you do 10 a day or 100 a week or 10% of your inventory a month, there's no guidelines to it. It is, I think, purposefully vague, because they, as one of the sellers noted, they want you to be afraid of falling afoul of this. If you want to manage some, if you want to get somebody to do something, you lay out specifically what it is you want them to do. In this case, they just are trying to limit your behavior. They're not trying to get you to completely stop. And if they give you, let's just say for round numbers, they said you can do 100 a week. All of the people who are currently doing delist and relist would change their practices to do that 100 a week to fall under whatever that guideline is. They would change their automation. I've seen several blog posts from companies who offer services to resellers that the automatic delist and relist is part of their program. And these posts have said, we're suggesting that you limit your delisting and relisting to X number now, trying to figure out what's the maximum amount that you can still game the system. If Poshmark provided you with that number, provided us with that number, we would naturally just go right to the ceiling. You get 100 a week. I've been doing 250. If I only get 100, fine, I'll do 100 a week. The other potential downside to this would be that now people who have not done this practice may see that now they can do 100 a week. It's out there. It's clearly acceptable to do. So they're now going to do 100, and Poshmark ends up in a worse place than they think they are right now. So again, this is just my guess. I expect that they are being purposely vague for where these thresholds are to keep you guessing, to really limit your behavior. My other opinion, for those of you who care, is that it won't take very long for sellers to figure it out, because there are sellers who are going to push the envelope. They're going to do 100 a day just to see if they get that warning. And then they'll all be on Reddit saying, on my 101st delist, relist, I got a warning. And it's only going to take a handful of sellers to do that kind of experiment to find out where those ceilings are. So this is, again, this is going to be fascinating to watch from the outside looking in. Again, I don't sell on Poshmark, so this is not going to affect me yet. But as I mentioned, I cannot imagine that other platforms, particularly eBay, are not watching this with great interest. It remains to be seen, the article continues, how heavily Poshmark will enforce this new policy, but if it does impact sellers who cross-list to other marketplaces, there will likely be swift and vocal backlash that could rival the outcry over the changes to their fee structure last year. And I would guess, again, this is just me, if I'm presented with this kind of situation and my Poshmark business is as bad as many sellers are talking about it being, I would just remove my listings from Poshmark. So this has an opportunity to really boomerang on them badly. If sellers are forced, if I'm selling, we'll use me as an example. If this was Etsy that was doing this, my business is about 80% eBay and 20% other sites. We'll just call it two sites just for the sake of argument. If my 20% business was going to punish me for the 80% of the business I did on eBay and throttle my ability to do listings, I probably would not list there at all. And I think that's what they may find with this. You can, again, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this, whether you're a Poshmark seller or not, because again, I feel like down the road, this is potentially going to come to all of us. Very, very interesting. It will be interesting to see if Poshmark does cave to the seller comments and either provides a increased level of detail about what these thresholds are, what is the maximum allowable number of listings ended or delist, relist, and so on. Really, really fascinating story. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Poshmark also made some announcements this week. They're testing a new personalized shopping and discovery experience with a For You feed. They're testing this new For You shopping feed with more personalized suggestions for browsing and item discovery. So they're trying to approach this. Their thought process with the thing we just talked about was that all of these old listings that are being unlisted and relisted as new are impacting discoverability. So they're trying to limit that as one way to improve discoverability. Here on the other side, from a more positive benefit, is another. The test was announced in a company blog post today, giving users a heads up they may be randomly selected to see this new experience over the coming weeks. At Poshmark, they said, we believe shopping should be effortless, exciting, and uniquely you. That's why we're reimagining the feed as a space that reflects your style, introduces you to fresh finds, and as a seller, connects your listings with shoppers who will love them most, making discovery more personal and engaging. To start, we're beginning small scale tests in the coming weeks that you may start to see in your feed, offering both the experience you know today and a new for you feed with more personalized recommendations based on how you shop and browse. Over time, they said, we'll continue to make optimizations to ensure sellers' closets are well positioned in this new experience, spotlighting you to shoppers who are most likely to resonate with your style and your inventory. This, they note, is just the beginning, and we'll be listening closely to make sure these updates bring a meaningful impact to the Poshmark experience. We're excited to explore new ways to enhance discovery, and we'll keep you updated along the way. So, again, this I think has the potential to be good. It's kind of the same thing with algorithms that we've seen before. If you look at whatever a particular color of men's shirt, it's going to start showing you more of that color or of that style from potentially other sellers, thinking that that's something that you're interested in. It doesn't. If you've spent any time on YouTube, some of these experiences can be a little hyperactive. You watch one random video on something, and suddenly your feed is full of things like that, where you really just had an interest in that one thing one time. I'm not trying to become an expert in it. I don't want to watch 25 videos about that thing. I wanted to watch the one, I did, and I've moved on. But now the YouTube algorithm thinks this is something I'm super, super interested in. So this will be interesting to see how well Poshmark manages it to not overwhelm your feed with a one-off thing that you maybe looked at one time. The goal of the test, they continued, is to enhance how shoppers discover listings by prioritizing content that best resonates with their past behaviors, like I just said, with YouTube, and preferences. And Poshmark says they're aiming to connect listings with high intent shoppers that are more likely to engage and buy. They are, to their credit, soliciting feedback about the current feed and the shopping experience on the site with a Google form users can fill out. There is a link in this article if you would like to do that if you are a Poshmark shopper. So there you go. That is also going on over at Poshmark. Moving on to eBay. A ton going on this week at eBay. They're opening a new sneaker authentication center, this time in Kentucky. While labor troubles linger, they're looking to hire operations and human resources talent for a new Louisville, Kentucky sneaker authentication center as expanding labor centric warehouse operations bring increased employee relations challenges. The company, as you know, first got into the sneaker authentication game as part of the Focus Vertical strategy, which catered to enthusiast buyers, with the original acquisition of SneakerCon's business back in 2021, which included warehouses in Las Vegas, New York, and several international locations. Largely missed by the media and analysts in 2021, but a user, Unsuck eBay, noted at the time that in-house authentication was a significant step change for the company as it departed from this asset-light, just a venue model that had previously protected it from unionization efforts, which had targeted competitors like Amazon. There's a whole link here to the thread that this person posted. But essentially, when they start hiring a bunch of people to do authentication, or with like the acquisition of TGC Player, they now are open to unionization efforts, which previously they were a employee light organization. They didn't do this kind of labor and were not really open to those sorts of things. The risk was finally and belatedly realized and disclosed to investors when trading card authenticators at TCG Player rather voted to form the first union in eBay's history just a few months after having been acquired. If you've been following that story, that has been quite a mess. There are lawsuits and all kinds of stuff going on with that eBay has not negotiated in good faith and so on. So messy. This opening of new warehouse potentially opens up to yet still more of that. They have not yet faced unionization efforts in the other authentication centers, but that doesn't necessarily mean those locations aren't experiencing their own issues. The authenticators at the Las Vegas location were heavily impacted by a company-wide layoff in 2024, and in 2023, eBay shut down the former SneakerCon location in New York and moved that operation to New Jersey. Multiple Ex eBay employees who worked at the New York Center filed a class action lawsuit of their own against the company, alleging violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act and New York labor laws. Now appears someone at eBay has finally taken lessons from Amazon and others operating in the warehouse and logistics spaces, opening the newest authentication facility in a lower cost, lower living, lower average wage, and right to work state, Kentucky. eBay's career page shows they are looking to hire multiple roles, including frontline HR generalist, a warehouse operations manager, and a sneaker authentication manager. So, interesting times. eBay looking to, it's hard to tell from this if they're looking to move a authentication service from a site that is giving them labor problems to a new site in a state that is unlikely to give them problems, or if they're just looking to expand their footprint and have more sites available to be able to process more stuff. The cynic in me would say they're trying to move out of the labor issues into a state that won't give them one, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this one and wish them luck with their new center. Over in the UK, we've talked about this over the last 6 months. It's been an issue, and eBay continues to tweak their new simple delivery system. Custom postage is now still allowed for some items under £10 in some subcategories. So this one is a bit of a mess. Um, to be fair, most things eBay does seems to be a bit of a mess, but just a week into the new UK simple delivery mandate for private sellers, the company's already making changes to the new policy, limiting exemptions for under £10 items to specific subcategories. This new program was originally introduced in May of 2024 and was limited only to clothing sales, causing some to speculate at the time that the program was designed specifically to compete with Vinted. But they quickly expanded the program to include most categories on the platform and then announced it would be mandatory for all private sellers of eligible items to use this new simple delivery as of April 15th. As part of the program, eBay had assured sellers they'll be fully protected against claims of loss or damage as long as they have a pickup scan showing that the item was handed over to the courier. eBay claims they would handle any claims after that point. Skeptical sellers, of course, worried about the caveats, talking about complying with the eBay delivery terms and conditions and properly packaging the item could give eBay more than enough wiggle room to slip out of covering many claims for simple delivery shipments. Not to mention that some carriers, like Every, have a long list of items which they deem as allowed to ship but are excluded from compensation for loss or damage. eBay has received a ton of backlash to the simple delivery mandate across its UK community forums and across social media, and now it appears they've quietly made changes to the exemption list that will allow items under £10 in some subcategories to retain custom postage options. So you could ship it yourself, take it to the Royal Post or whatever it is, and ship it and not use this program. We'll get into why this is a problem in a minute. When eBay first announced that it would be mandatory, the policy made exceptions for authenticity guarantee, bulky items, and items under £10 and or under weighing under 100 grams or less. There was a whole list and a whole policy page of how which things would qualify and which not. Sometime since then, eBay, however, has edited the page to now include a long list of subcategories on top of this £10 and letter size requirements to determine if the items are excluded from the mandate. While simple delivery will still be available for those items, private sellers will now still have the option to use custom postage. There is a list, again, there's a link to it included in this, but it's important to note that it does not apply to all subcategories, even within some of the subcategories. And as the FAQ says, the only way to know for sure if your item is required to use simple delivery or not is to see if that is the only option offered when you create the listing. So again, as you're making the listing, you'll see that it is or is not the only way to ship it, and then you can select that you want to ship it on your own. But it's not cut and dried. There is supposedly a master list of categories and subcategories and what items may or may not be included. My guess is it is so exhaustive as to be next to useless. So the recommendation is when you're listing an item that you think may qualify to be exempted from the program, that you check it while you're creating the listing. I do not envy you folks over in the UK. eBay is a bit of a shambles over there. They did announce another partnership. Last week we talked about their partnership with checkout.com. This week they announced a partnership with Klarna, expanding to the US with buy now, pay later, and reselling capabilities. eBay's partnership with Klarna, which they have had in other countries, is now coming to the US, which will give buyers flexible ways to pay. eBay, of course, according to the press release, is a global e commerce leader that connects millions of buyers and sellers around the world. And today they announced the expansion of its global strategic partnership with Klarna, the AI powered payments and commerce network, to the US market. eBay is rolling out Klarna's flexible payment options to millions of eBay's US shoppers. The expanded partnership reflects eBay's continued investment in bringing more choice, flexibility, and control to buyers while enhancing affordability across key categories. With more than 2.3 billion listings, eBay is where people come to shop with purpose, whether looking for value, rare finds, or sustainable options such as a refurbished camera, hard to find car part, or a vintage handbag. We're thrilled they continued to expand our global strategic partnership with Klarna to the US. We've been very pleased with the positive customer and business impact Klarna has delivered in some of our key markets, including the UK and Europe, where we're now excited to give millions of US shoppers more flexible and affordable ways to pay on eBay. Since launching in the UK, Austria, France, Italy, the Netherlands, and Spain in December of 2024, eBay says shoppers are using Klarna to split up payments to access higher ticket items such as electronics, fashion, and collectibles with a buy now, pay later feature. Buyers can pay for eligible eBay purchases in the US using Klarna's flexible payment options, including pay in 4 and finance. Klarna, for their part, also recently announced its resell feature to US eBay buyers, allowing users to list past Klarna purchases on eBay with pre-filled descriptions and images with just a few clicks. So that's an interesting option as well. As I mentioned, this news follows eBay's recent announcement expanding payment capabilities through their partnership with checkout.com. So again, giving buyers more options and more ways to pay and some financing flexibility, I only see as a win. So kudos to everyone involved for this. Props where they're deserved and raspberries where they're not. This is, in my opinion, a good move and can do nothing but help eBay and sellers. eBay also announced that their summer 2025 seller check-in is slated for May 7th. It'll be the second seller check-in of the year, coming soon. Another virtual event planned for May 7th, which will feature, as they usually say, key announcements, strategies to drive summer sales, and sessions on, promoted listings. What do you know? Another session on promoted listings. Shipping, marketing, and more. eBay teams and leaders bring you the season's key announcements along with strategies to drive your business. May 7th virtual event, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. They'll have the main presentation with VP and GM of the US, Don Block, Director of Community Engagement, Rebecca Michaels, Product Managers, Hazal Zorlu and Evan Swanson, Strategic Accounts Lead, Dallin McKee, and VP Seller Experience, Xiaodi Zhang, revealing key announcements and strategies for summer sales. Liz has announced in this article that she will be attending. I will also be attending. So if you don't want to spend 2 hours listening to this, come visit one or the other of us for a recap once it's all said and done. eBay put out an interesting, let me see if I can get it to come up here. I got an email. This doesn't appear to be going to everyone, but they're running a special sale coming up in June. The email said, put your store in the spotlight. You've put in the work. Now give your items the attention they deserve. Offer your buyers a 15% off coupon and get your eBay store inventory featured in their June sale event. The email that I got said, your store is in great shape. As one of our top performing sellers, we're offering you an exclusive invitation to participate in our June sale promotion. More than 60% of participants in our previous events saw double-digit growth in sales. Don't miss this chance to showcase your items and increase your store's visibility. Join in, offer your buyers a 15% off coupon funded by you, the seller, between June 2nd and June 8th. We'll set up the coupon for you and take care of the on-site marketing. Top performing items based on your sales history from your store will be featured on our June event page from June 2nd to June 8th. The only problem for a seller like me is I don't have like repetitive items. Everything I've got is pretty much a one-off. So I'm not going to have, I have top performing categories, but I don't really have top performing items. So I'm not sure whether this program will work for me or not. I think I am going to try it. I run sales every month anyway. I think in place of that, for the start of June, I may just do this and see how that works. We'll have to see if it works, but my thought is that I'm going to try it. And then there's a link to click and how you can participate. Interestingly, it is the coupon is 15% off, no minimum purchase, $100 maximum discount per transaction, which can be used up to twice. Applies to all eligible inventory in your store. Runs from June 2nd, 2025 at 5 a.m. Pacific until June 8th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific. Are all items eligible? Warranties, protection plans, as well as items for coins, paper money, gift cards, coupons, vehicles in eBay Motors, and real estate categories are not eligible, which makes good sense. Buyers, how will they redeem it? The buyer will see the June sale coupon code on site and they can apply the code at checkout. The buyer must complete checkout within the June sale timeframe to receive the discount. Again, who will fund the 15%? You, me, the seller, will fund the entire 15% discount for your items. Here's the kicker. You'll receive the full price for the item during the coupon campaign. 45 to 60 days after the coupon campaign has ended, eBay will invoice you the discount amount for items bought with the coupon. Returns within 30 days and cancellations won't be charged. So when this sale takes place in early June, you're going to get all the money. Then sometime in late July or early August, you're going to get a bill from eBay for whatever that 15% times however much stuff you sold is going to come due, and you're going to have to pay that all in one lump sum. Not sure how I feel about that as well. I mean, it's the amount of money is the same either way, but I'd rather have it taken out of those individual sales rather than coming out in theory over a month later in one bulk uh, amount. You'll be invoiced through eBay in the Seller Hub. It will appear as a bulk charge for the coupon. Again, returns won't be counted. Can I increase my sale to offset the 15% off discount? No, we ask that you not increase listing prices by 15% for your items before the promotion period start date or after the promotion period end date. You may lower your prices, of course, at your discretion. The coupon may appear in search results on the view item page and at checkout during the promotion period. The coupon will also be front and center in all of their June marketing. Once you opt in, you'll receive an email on how to complete your agreement. You do have to go and agree that you're going to fund it. Coupons will work with best offer, so be aware of that. If you decide to participate, if you get the email and decide to participate, be aware that if you accept an offer from a buyer, they will still be able to apply the coupon to that. So be wary. You may end up with somebody that gets to double dip on that. They say sellers who are below standard will not be eligible to participate in this promotion. So I don't know if this email is going out to all sellers who are at above standard or top rated. But there you go. That's coming up. Let me know in the comments below if that's something that you would be participating in. I did mention this in the Wednesday Live. We were talking a little bit about Etsy, and they had announced that they are in the process of selling off the musical instrument marketplace, excuse me, easy for me to say, Reverb. It's being sold to Servco Pacific Inc. and Creator Partners LLC. It's all but eliminating the Etsy house of brands. The news was revealed in an 8K, which was filed with the SEC last week and comes just a week ahead of their Q1's earning report, which Liz says is likely an attempt to boost investor sentiment about the company's financial future, though the details of the transaction have yet to be disclosed. They have entered into an agreement, they said, to sell Reverb Holdings, its musical instrument marketplace, to Reverb Intermediate Co. LLC, a Delaware limited liability company and wholly owned subsidiary of Reverb Partners LLC, a Delaware limited liability company. It is an affiliate of Servco Pacific, a Hawaii corporation, and Creator Partners LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, collectively known as the Acquirers. They share Reverb's experience in the music industry and a focus on supporting musicians. So, from that standpoint, this sounds like potentially a great move for Reverb. I don't know if it's a great move for Etsy. I personally don't think that acquiring Reverb was probably a great move for Etsy at the beginning. It'll be interesting to see if this ends up being a write-off for them, if this venture made them any money over the time they held the company or not. My guess would be probably not, but nonetheless, they have decided to divest Reverb from their portfolio, they said, to focus on driving core growth in the core Etsy marketplace as well as its subsidiary Depop. We'll see if that holds up because I think that's the only thing left besides the actual Etsy. The transaction is currently expected to close in the coming months. Additional information will be provided in the quarterly report on Form 10Q for the quarter ended March 31st. That will be coming up sometime this week. The decision, the article points out, is really no surprise as the marketplace has struggled to produce results over recent quarters while also facing activist investor pressure from Elliott Management, which famously also pressured eBay, as you may remember, to spin off business units that were either underperforming or not aligned with the core marketplace business. The writing was on the wall with significant layoffs at Reverb back in September of last year and the departure of Chief Product Officer Bradford Shellhammer back in October. Blog post over on Reverb, their CEO, David Mandelbrot, sought to quell any buyer, seller, or employee concerns, saying the Reverb team will remain intact and buying on selling on the site will continue as usual without any disruption. Today, he said, I'm excited to share that two new investors, Creator Partners and Servco, have entered an agreement to purchase Reverb from Etsy. Once the deal closes, this is good news again for Reverb, I think. Will be a privately held, independently operated company backed by two investors who bring a passion for the musical instrument industry, as well as a community first approach and a deep desire to help transform creative industries for the better. When the deal is complete in the coming weeks, we'll return to operating as a standalone business. We won't be merging with either investor or any of the other companies in their portfolios, and our team will remain intact. In short, you can continue buying and selling on Reverb as you normally would without any disruption. That said, he continues, we hope you do notice positive changes as we continue to focus on making Reverb the best place to buy and sell music gear. Here's just a sampling of what we've already got in the works. We've been working to make more music making software available on Reverb so you can change up your sound, even if you're limited on space or money. We're getting ready to pilot a new option for selling that allows you to get paid faster and drop off your gear locally without needing to create a listing or ship. And we've got teams working on making it easier to find what you're looking for on Reverb, ship your items safely, and resolve your support issue quickly. Mandelbrot also said he believes these investors are a great fit to take Reverb private because Creator Partners currently has music investments in BMI, SoundCloud, Colors and Studio, and Mogul. I'm a big user of SoundCloud, so I think that's a good move for a company like Reverb. And Servco has been involved in the musical instrument industry since 1937, including a long history with Fender, originally as a dealer in the 1950s and now as a majority owner of the company. Timing of the move also comes as no surprise as Etsy previously divested the Brazilian marketplace Elo7 back in 2023 in a similar effort to gain a pre-earnings stock price bump. So there you go. Good news for the folks over at Reverb. Last bit of news. We're 45 minutes in. This is why I canceled the What Sold recap for this week. There's just so much going on. Etsy is also, as Poshmark was, making improvements this side on the seller side, touting shop manager improvements, but sellers are worried about AI review summaries and alt text. So again, the use of AI and bots to insert things into our listings that we are not putting there that Etsy thinks would be valuable, but are turning out to be quite error prone, as it turns out. Etsy announces spring updates to streamline and improve shop management, but sellers worry the AI review summaries and alt text may harm their business. I have noticed, I don't use the app very frequently, but I've noticed some big changes on the Etsy seller website, which I actually like. There are some things, unlike eBay, where some things have gotten more difficult to find. Some things on Etsy appear to have become easier to find and are in a much more kind of logical workflow on the screen. So far, the changes that I've come across, I've been very, very pleased with. So if you're a seller on Etsy, let me know in the comments if you've seen these changes and what your opinions are, especially if you're on the mobile and you've seen any changes. Again, I don't use it all that frequently, but I've been very happy with the changes I've seen on the web. In the latest update to their seller handbook, Etsy says they're working behind the scenes to make improvements to the platform that result in a smoother selling experience. New photo tools in the Etsy seller app promise faster uploads, easy editing, and time saving custom photo filters. I wish they would up the number of photos you can actually have. That would be helpful. Save time and streamline your workflow, they said, with new photo enhancements. Upload and edit your photos directly on Etsy.com or in the seller app using these new powerful editing tools. When you upload photos or videos in the app, they'll process in the background so you can keep working on other tasks without interruption. Plus, create and save custom photo filters to quickly apply your favorite edits to new photos to give your shop a cohesive look. You will have noticed if you were here on Wednesday live when I was doing the List Perfectly demo and I was moving listings into Etsy, I was able to continue on down the page, making changes while the things at the top of the page, the photos and the description and the title were listing in the background. So it doesn't prevent you from continuing to edit things that you want to edit while it's loading things that you've already done, whether it be from a cross-posting program or photo upload. So I thought that was particularly, again, a nice time saver. I'm not having to wait for all of that stuff to load before I can make my changes. Sellers can now see all listing categories and subcategories directly in the seller app, see which listings would benefit from a refresh, and a select group of sellers will also be included in a beta test of a new real-time listing quality feedback tool, which is a really interesting take. See all listing categories directly in the app so you can accurately categorize your listings from your phone to help buyers find your items. Listing prioritization on the search visibility dashboard shows you which listings would benefit most from a refresh, so you know where to focus first, they said. And in beta testing, a real time listing quality feedback alerts you to issues that could impact your search ranking before you publish. This is an experimental feature and is only available to a select group of sellers at this time for testing purposes, they point out. They also recently, I say recently, probably 6 months ago now, there's another listing search quality flag that comes up. I've got probably 70 some right now out of my 3,000 that indicates that there is something that may limit my visibility in search for some of my listings. Most of mine relate to what Etsy feels are photos that are too dark, but it is an interesting addition on the dashboard that flags you to listings that they are identifying that might be problematic, that might need a bit of an update in order to be readily visible to buyers. So again, kudos where they're due. There's all kinds of problems at these sites, but some of this stuff is actually working as designed and is pretty helpful. They also are creating, they said, a more simple, more focused shop management experience, moving key information and dedicated tabs, improving page loading speeds, and streamlining navigation, which is what I pointed to at the beginning of this particular segment. The things that I do regularly on the Etsy website, I've noticed a huge, huge improvement in that workflow, which saves me a little bit of time and just removes a little bit of stress from my life. So I'm really happy personally with those changes. They also say they're expanding and improving support aligned sellers have heard before, but real world experiences may vary. I've not needed Etsy seller support in well over a year, so I can't comment on that. If you have and can, please do so in the comments down below. The update concludes with some final points about improving Etsy ad placement within search and testing layout changes. We've improved the ad placement within search to help every shopper find exactly what they're looking for. The home layout updates are being tested to make inventory easier to browse and shop, ultimately helping you make more sales. I think the biggest knock that most of us have is that the Etsy search results do still return a lot of, but to be generous, irrelevant results, things that are not the thing that I searched for. I can put in a very specific search term and get a pages and pages of random stuff that has nothing to do with what I'm actually looking for. So as I give Etsy kudos for some things that I think they're doing right, there's one that I think they could really use some work on. Their search is suspect at best. While some of these updates, the article continues, may be helpful for Etsy sellers, none of them touch on one of the most common recent topics sellers have been expressing in the company's forums and across also social media, concerns about how Etsy is using AI in ways that may negatively impact the buyer and seller experience. In the last few months, they've been increasingly using AI to power search and discovery capabilities, and sometimes with bad results. We talked about a couple of weeks ago the person who was shopping for a vegan cake and it was misidentified. A cake was misidentified as being vegan when it was not, and the person bought it and ended up having to throw it out. So it's maybe not quite ready for prime time. One of those issues is alt text, where Etsy is using AI to add text for images, and it is not always very accurate. There is a post from Cindy Baldassi, which is linked here and is on her LinkedIn page, indicating they're using alt text, adding it to some listing photos without notifying sellers, which is problematic. Number one, I'd like to know if you're doing that so I can know to check them to make sure that they're right. According to the help pages, it's only supposed to be happening in the US, but many outside the country appear to also be affected, including Cindy. While some of the AI attempts have been decent, there are also many serious errors, including completely misidentifying basic materials, despite them being clearly mentioned in the titles and descriptions. It appears that Etsy is only looking at the image when coming up with alt text, not anything that the seller has written. That is interesting to me because it is the exact opposite of the problem that we talked about with eBay and their magical AI image listing tool a couple of weeks ago, where that tool appears to be relying very heavily on the information that you type into the listing as opposed to what's in the photo. So it's these two. We talked a couple of weeks ago, I think, about Etsy and eBay merging. Here's a place where both of them appear to have something that is working reasonably well on half of the issue, but missing badly on the other half. And if they could put those two together, they might actually have a workable AI solution here. I digress. Since alt text is both used by disabled people through tools such as screen readers and by Google and other search engines, these AI errors can lead to confusion and even unhappy customers who thought the product was something different. Fortunately, you can edit the alt text to fix any issue. Here's the post and a video that shows you how, and that is included in this article if you want to go check it out. If you're caught up in this where you've got some listings that are getting bad information on them. So there you go, my friends. Man, what a week. A ton of stuff going on. Uh, I always forget to do this at the start. If you got something out of this, do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. If you're listening on Spotify, leave me the 5-star review. I would really appreciate it. Feel free to share this with your reselling friends who might also get some benefit. We've got a really good core community here that shows up to help each other out, and I really appreciate that. As always, I appreciate you spending a little bit of your whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to this with me and catching up on this reselling news. I've had a lot of really great feedback over the last couple of weeks about how much people appreciate having all of these recaps in one place. Shout out to Liz and to the folks over at e-commerce bites. I did not reference them today, but I use them as a resource as well. Those are the folks that are doing the hard work. I'm just trying to condense it down into something that you can put on in the background and listen to rather than having to spend hours going through this stuff yourself. So hopefully you got something out of it. And again, if you did, do me a solid and hit that thumbs up button. Please do comment down below. I always love reading your takes on what's going on. As for shows next week, there will be 3 Two Whatnot shows, Tuesday at 11 and Thursday at 11. Tuesday is vintage religious books. Thursday at 11 is more vintage kids books. And then Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, we will be live on YouTube, also at 11 a.m. Eastern, where I will do a kind of a 10-day what sold recap. We'll get you caught up on everything that is sold here at the Galaxy over the last week. Until then, my friends, thank you again for coming out. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.